Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to The Mouse Says the Butler Didn't Do It, a Thanksgiving mystery, the New Hope Thanksgiving mystery, part of a series written by me, Nico Scher, under the pen name of Cheryl Ann Butler. Today we're recording a little bit differently, and this is take two, as we had a calamity thanks to our little hoodlums, Maggie and Chuck, messing around with my phone, and the fact that our Boggle decided to ambush both of them, and it became a 2-on-1 wrestling match between two Chihuahua puppies and a ragdoll cat. And, well, let's just put it this way. Boggle escaped without harm, and Chuck and Maggie are now hiding. The mouse is sitting over my shoulder here. I don't know whether you can see her or not. Mouse. Mouse house, come here. Here is the mouse who is, come here, baby. She is the owner of the channel, and she basically ignored the whole situation, and it's to a point where it's like, you puppies have got to get real. Leave the cats alone. So, when last we met with Graham and Storm had been having things explained to him by Graham as to the relationship he had with Destiny, and his appearance had changed quite drastically from the ragtag it had originally been, with the long-haired amount of dreadlocks that went about his head, in a variance of height from all over the place, out at 1.5 to 2 foot around his forehead and the sides, to 2.5 to 3 foot above his head. And when Mama Licorice, or Aunt Lottie, had finished with it, those dreadlocks, tangles, and knots were gone. She had discovered several injuries to his skull, and that she had them know about it, in that, yes, he had been dealing with things, but his hair now hung to about 3 inches just above his ankles. He also had the start of a soul patch, which left him to resemble much, much more of his grandfather, Chris. We still do not know what's going on with Reed as of yet, and who knows when that man will show up. So, we continue on with chapter 69. They walked into the back kitchen door of the B&B off of the screen porch to shut the door quietly. Chris and Ethel were doing dishes, and their backs were to them, preparing to serve Thanksgiving dinner that evening. Tootie turned to close the cabinet door. Her eyes went wide. Graham put a finger to his lips. Dad, Mom, you got a minute? Chris looked over his shoulder and turned to take 2 steps back and bang into the counter. Holy fuck. Fuck me. Effie, look at them two. Ethel was gaping as her eyes bulged and her mouth opened, and she was struck stone silent. Mom? Graham looked at Storm, then to his mother. Mom. Ethel swallowed. I'm looking at my husband, or then my boyfriend at that age. Except his hair is darker like Theo's. She put her hands on her hips. Why have you been hiding my handsome grandson all this time? She moved forward to give him a hug. Oh, gosh, Chris. She turned to her husband. She lifted her grandson's hair over his shoulder. Look at the length of his hair. It's got to be 5 foot long. It's longer than our Silver's. Chris stroked his own goatee. He got a little something there. And like Dad, the blonde comes out in the beard. He nodded in approval. Now I have a question from our handsome grandson. What's that, Grandpa? He looked up at him. Can we get rid of those rags and tatters you've been wearing? They don't fit you to begin with. Not the classic jeans or the rock concert or band T-shirts, and definitely not Theo's Green Beret jacket. You swiped that off of your father when you were 2. But those damn Wally World throwaways and those ratty-ass, too big for you, dress shirts, someone, probably that Ash Reed or one of Kathy's. Shit, I wasn't thinking. I opened my mouth and inserted foot this time, like our Jess does 9 times out of 10. Sorry, I don't have the words for them. I don't know what it is. Whatever's dumped and you got stuck with. Chris looked him up and down. And yes, Theo gave that jacket to Graham when he was 5, and it pissed both George and Reed off. And now I realized why. Dad wouldn't give it up, that jacket, on that fucked up weekend. He also fought to keep it and damn near died doing it. It was the only thing he had with him when Uncle Jim and Dakota found him. Chris brought his hands to his mouth as he stifled a choking sound, dropped his head, and turned his back on them. Dad, you okay? Graham took a step forward to rest his hand on his father's back. Chris nodded, swallowed hard, and turned back to them. Yeah, just a memory. I thought I had those under control, but it just hit me and kicked me one in the ass. He shook his head and blinked several times. Grandpa, you can say what you were thinking with Kathy. You were right about the shirts and several pairs of jeans. It won't hurt. Others came out of the dumpster at the apartment when people were moving out. I scavenged. He bit his lip. Not after what I've learned about her and Reed. Neither of them have ever felt like they were my parents. 'Cause of this, he moved his hand through the air around the kitchen. This home, this crazy mixed up family of Mandula. You all are my family. You all put up with my goofy ass shit this morning, and you all understand where I'm coming from. The term that you're looking for, Grandpa, would be one of Kathy's Johns or tricks or her hustles. He gave a small grin and shrugged, then looked at Graham. Dad, you fought for Papu's jacket? Graham took a deep breath and blew it out. He gave a nod once and held his head high. Wasn't nothing taking that jacket from me. I do have one memory of that night. I cherish it. Reed yanked it out of my grasp when I was down and he was going to throw it into the fire they had going. I bolted and caught him in the lower part of his upper body in almost a chop block as he was standing against the bench, and I buckled him to the ground and somehow got it away and damn near put him into the fire. With that, it kind of goes blank, and the next thing I got is, he paused, well, under the bridge. I hope you busted somebody up and gave him the surprise of his life, namely his ass. He turned back to Chris and Ethel. Dad and Miss Destiny are taking me clothes shopping after she's done work to a place called Vintage Always. Good place, nice men. They know their business. I very much approve. He placed his hand over his heart. Graham, he looked at his son. Cash flow. How much do you think you'll need? Dad, I got this. No, you don't got this. Mom and I have missed 9 years of birthdays, Christmases, Hanukkahs, Kwanzaa, 10 years of all of that without going school shopping, and a bar mitzvah, First Holy Communion, and confirmation. And don't even get me started on Easter egg hunts, Easter baskets filled with candy, the chocolate gelt and dreidel games, and Passover and Purim in making Haman hats. Shit, cubbies, boys and Eagle Scouts uniforms, and crafts, camping equipment, wooden car races, fishing poles. Me hearing the complaint of, ew, can't we use bologna and corn instead of worms? Chris actually emitted a squeal with the comment, Storm, don't get me wrong, your Aunt Chrissy is a trooper. She was the one of our kids that didn't complain about the worms. She thought it was neat, a freaking female Smeagol. If you ever watched the movie of Return of the Kings, the opening scene was Smeagol as he and his buddy are fishing. Him, the worm, the hook. You'll get what I'm saying. She still fishes with me and your cousins. She bow hunts as well with Silver, Izzy, and Yuma. Yeah, your Aunt Chrissy is strange. Oh, Christ, don't you let her hear that from you, or she will come at you both barrels. And she'll nail you with several water balloons, Ethel stated as her husband laughed. That's still her nickname during fishing season. She instantly becomes Auntie Smeagol. It was Jimmy who wouldn't touch them and ran up the riverbank to hide in the car until Grandpa gave in and brought a 1/4 pound of bologna. Chris laughed. And that little shit was right. We caught more fish with the bologna and the can of corn he swiped from my pantry than with the night crawlers. That one, he pointed to Graham, who in turn raised an elegant brown eyebrow. Released my worms and then talked me into teaching him how to swim in the Delaware River. He smiled. Graham ducked his head, then looked through his long fringed bangs. I go fishing with you now, Dad. Yeah, you do. And the grandkids and the babies love it. Dad's the one that baits their hooks for them and teaches them how to do it and how to cast a line, while Aunt Chrissy is setting the reels for them. We'll have to make a day of it and with all the kids this summer. Now, are you going to let Mom and I help you get him fitted out? Plus, there's the funds that Ranella, Yaya, and Papu set up for him that haven't been touched in all these years. Chris, you forgot to mention a couple of things. Easter outfits and New Year's Eve dress for the party in the ballroom. We never got to do that either. Ethel smiled. And all the Halloween costumes and the hay wagon rides and Thanksgiving and winter and summer solstice and the spring and fall equinox as well. You're right, those two. Graham nodded. Yeah, Dad, I'll be honest. He glanced to Storm. He don't have much, and Papoose Theo's Vietnam-era Green Beret jacket isn't made for the snow and cold we get here. I used to wear it over a Sherpa-lined jacket. True, it doesn't snow in Vietnam. Chris looked at his watch. It's now 12:30. I got an hour before I need to take those turkeys out of the oven and bake once again and start the biscuits. The dessert pies Tootie helped to make are all done. What do you say, Storm? If we head up to your room and see what you got there and make a list of what you need, so you, Dad, and Destiny have a get started list, and we'll fill out the rest of the stuff that you need later on. That would be cool, Grandpa. Only I've got one question. Yeah, what's that? Well, I could ask it later. He turned to his father. Emily looked at her son and then to her grandson. Okay, Ethel, here goes. This is... Emily turned to look at them. Graham, you want to take this? Sure, Aunt Emily. Graham inhaled. Take it slow, Chris said. Ethel looked from one to the other and back to her husband. Okay, Emily, Graham, what did Azart and Sam have to say about this rascal standing next to you? Well, Mom, he needs to be at St. Mary's to register for surgery on both Achilles tendons Monday morning at 5:30, Graham smiled. So we're going to wait on sneakers, boots, shoes, and winter mucklucks, and they'll need to do a gradual straightening cast over a period of weeks. That means several casts, not just one shot. He's also scheduled tomorrow with Dr. Moon at 10:15 to be measured and fitted for a back brace for the spinal bifida that has actually caused the club foot. It wasn't my drinking. He cleared his throat. It scared the hell out of me that I caused this on him. But Dr. Farr said the spinal bifida is a type called... Graham paused, closed his eyes, took in a deep breath, and then blinked rapidly. And here I go. I can't pronounce this sucker right. My L-O-Men-org-O-cell. Chris blinked. That's one hell of a mouthful. He shook his head. There's got to be an easier way to say that thing. Graham blew out a breath. There is. Thank you up there. He pointed to the rafters. They tagged it MMC. Much easier to say. Anyway, Doc thinks it was caused by Kathy's failure at prenatal care. He prescribed prenatal vitamins and folic acid. And as we know through Chrissy's pregnancy, that's required. She took them to protect the kids. And she was to go to an OGBYN. He shook his head. There's no record of it ever being done. I've never seen his birth certificate or any hospital records. Neither has Dr. Farr. And there's no records of it ever being done. Doc thinks she had him in that trailer of her mother's that belonged to her guy friend, the one she was friendly with before she took off with Eric, the teacher, the one that fathered Michelle's first child. He explained that the development of a baby in the first trimester is when things start with the neurological parts along with the heartbeat, the spinal cord, and if there's not enough folic acid or vitamin B, this can occur. Fortunately, it's mild with Storm, but it has caused the issue and created the club foot when he started to walk after they tried with the infant braces. He looked at Emily. Aunt Em, did I explain that the way Doc and Dr. Moore said it? Did I make sense, or did I really manage to screw that up? Perfect sense. You always did explain things well enough, even as a child, a lot of times better than any of us adults back then with a college education could. She smiled, but you three had better go to his room and get this list done. You're right, Chris again agreed. Effie, can you handle Pennywise? She's sleeping in my office. She's fine. Then, gentlemen, let's do this. He pushed away from the counter for them to head towards the door. Grandpa? Grandma? Can I ask that question now? Sure, Ethel said, as Chris pulled short and turned. You said about my grandmother having an older child, older than my mother. Do you know? Well, you mentioned it before at the breakfast table a couple of days ago. Do you know if it's my uncle or my aunt and where they are? Chris turned to look at Ethel and stroked his goatee. Not a clue. I know she was 16 when she had him, or her. And, Ethel. Well, she sighed. We know that Dan Manikowski was its father. We don't know whether it was a boy or girl. And that child is older than any of our crew. Our oldest born would be Dakota, from Pat and from Gilly, and then Ricer from Hap and Bet. Jim was conceived on our honeymoon, and he's about 8 to 10 months younger than those two, I think. And then she pointed to Emily. Yes, then Silver and my Early was born. So he is about 4 or 5 years older than Ricer and Dakota. And yet, nobody knows where he or she is. They looked at Storm. They all shook their head. No, she put him up for adoption and just basically walked away. Storm dropped his head. Well, I hope he had a better life than what she gave Kathy. The men turned for the elevator. Chapter 70. In Storm's fourth floor room, they found Lady Lobo asleep under the comforter at the foot of the bed. Lucky and Free had settled in the fluffy pillows and had pulled both throw blankets over themselves and hunkered down, and there was the start of frost on the sill and at the bottom of the window pane as it started to climb. "Why is it so damn cold in here?" Chris asked as he placed a hand near the radiator. "Shit! Something is wrong with the system. Graham, see if you can turn that valve while I check the others. He's not getting any steam heat up here. We got an airlock. Be careful. If that thing has built up its back pressure..." "I know, Dad. I can get scalded." He turned to Storm. "You take the dogs into the sitting room. We don't need something happening." Storm nodded. "Come on, guys. Let's get out of Dad's and Grandpa's way. Please be careful, both of you." The four of them started for the other room. Chris turned the valve. Then Graham did the same. They got nothing. Graham looked at his father. "Could we have a leak somewhere?" They walked into the sitting room. Chris scrubbed his face. "This building has got miles of copper mixed with galvanized and PEX with brass, copper, and both new and old PEX fittings. Some shark bites, others not. God help us if we do. 4 floors plus the double basement and attic. We have 20 suites with full bathrooms and on the second and third floor each. The ballroom is there on the third floor. Music hall on the second. We have Aunt Emily's and Uncle Silver's private quarter, Mom's and mine, your half suite, 14 half baths throughout, the laundry and sewing rooms, my kitchen and pantry, the root cellar and cold storage and canning prep room." He shuddered. "Dining hall, 2-story library with a complimentary computer center, guest lounge with a wet bar, and guest sitting room, the family's private sitting room, the theater, atrium, and art gallery, the antiques, the historic archive rooms, the archaeology rooms, several storage rooms, the access corridor for the water and all the pipes in the utility room area, the furnace room, the attached well house room, and the pipes travel throughout that attached greenhouse lean-to, the bridal suite, and he turned to count, 4 radiators in the presidential suite and connecting baseboard in here. They go to the playroom over there and up to heat the baseboard in the attic. Shit! Jesus Christ Almighty! We have 8 orifices. Oh, God's help us. And the chicken coop is heated by steam along with the goat shack. Son of a bitch, the goat stalls. All of those stalls for my milking goats are too. This place is as huge as Waverly Hills Insane Asylum in Louisville, Kentucky. Jesus Christ Almighty, the only thing we ain't got is an operating room, a goddamned morgue, and a body chute. Storm piped up. Isn't your kitchen like an operating room and morgue? And the compost bin and garbage disposal like the body chute, Grandpa? Besides, Mom Emily and Grandmom Ethel said we have ghosts, though. Chris blinked as Graham dropped his head and bit his lip. Smartass. The men growled together. He takes after the old man and pops, Chris chuckled. Quick on the draw with the smartass remarks and shit. Graham leaned around his father to look at Storm, then to his father. Dad, I'm going to need to borrow your Stang. My son is not freezing his ass off, and neither are his dogs, ghost or no ghost. Beastly would never forgive me. He laughed. I'll leave you and Mom the Porsche. Storm, let's pack up your clothes, laptop, and your printer, and anything you have for the dogs. After we do shopping, you're moving in with me, if that's okay with Uncle Silver and Aunt Em. He looked to his father. Dad? With a quirk of a smile, Chris answered, I agree. You may have your parents moving back in with you for a while as boarders. Now that you own the house, and be prepared, we'll be loading the 21 hens, 21 roosters with 4 ewes and a buck into Mom's truck along with Baca and Hajna. They're coming with us, and the Anapes just may be living with Izzy and Flea until we get this mess straightened out. We may have to cancel reservations after Thanksgiving while we get this fixed. Chris took his phone out to call Silver and put him on the speaker. Brother, we got an issue. There's something amiss in the heating system. We got no heat on the 4th floor and the temp is dropping fast. I'll make the call. You get the woman and the putty cats ready to move. What about your cackleberry bushes, Foghorn, and Baja and his girls? Is Storm going with Em and I or with his dad? Silver's voice came through with a crackle. I'm going with Dad and Grandpa and Grandma to his home. Is that okay? By all means, it's fine. Make sure you take a few of the old blankets to keep Free extra warm. She'll need them. Poor pupper ain't got any fur. See you when I get there. We're closing the shop now. Cackles, Foghorn, his buddies, my girls, and Baja are going to be at the old barnyard behind Graham's. We'll pick them up in Effie's truck. Chris ended the call. They packed Storm's items in several blankets Graham took from the hall closet. As they descended the elevator, they could feel the temperature in the building start to drop. Emily, Ethel, Tootie, pack some clothes, and we need to get the cats ready for travel. Tootie, Chris turned to her. Have you ever worked with chickens or goats? Never, but I'm willing to learn. They're part of agriculture. Why, Grandpa? You're going to learn rough shot on the hoof. We need to get them in crates and cages. They need to go with us. Let me get RCC and Buddy moving. I'm sure they can help. Can RCC take her bear? Good girl. Of course. And the 3 of you dress warm. It will take a few moments with the chickens, but not nearly as long as it will with the goats. Why is this place getting cold all of a sudden? Ethel started for their suite. Silver is on the line with Dougie Hills. Storm saw his father freeze in place for the first time as his grandfather mentioned that name. Graham visibly trembled as he was frozen like a statue. Slowly, his hand came to his face to wipe the sweat that had broken out. Then the tremble slowed, and he inhaled and walked down the hall to the storage room. We have something going on between the boiler and the radiators. We've lost pressure, so we don't have steam, and this place is going to get cold fast. I will be back to help with the cats and to show Tootie, RCC, and Buddy how to round up my girls and their man and the other rescued roosters. The ewes and Baja won't be a problem unless he gets a tickle up his nose. They'll follow you right up the ramp and into the back of the truck cap. Don't forget the kitten in your office. He kissed Ethel's cheek. You saw, she whispered. Yeah, he just had a flashback or something, and the way he froze, it was a bad one. It caused him to freeze up, and he broke out in one of those damn cold sweats. First one in a while. You know Jason hung with Reed, and I have never trusted Dougie, not since the shit he pulled in high school when he tried out for the cheerleading squad. Like father, like son. I'll be back. Go, take care of her son. Ethel gave him a pat on the rear end. Grandpa? Come on, Storm. They walked down the hall to the storage room. Chapter 71. Grandpa? Why did Dad kind of, Storm asked as he started down the hall. We're going to find out. That's what he calls his freeze frame, like a child's game of statues. And I'm going to make it right. Promise. Be prepared. If he doesn't have the cold sweats under control, you're going to see your grandpa grab him and get him into a hot shower, clothes and all, because when that happens, his body temperature drops real fast, and he can go into convulsions along with starting into hypothermia. It's from him almost freezing to death on us when they left him in the elements to die. He sometimes can't regulate his body temperature. He tapped the door. Graham, it's Dad and Storm. We're coming in. Okay, Graham stammered. Chris turned the knob and opened the door. Graham had the pet carriers piled in the center of the floor. He'd taken a stack of new litter pans and set them, and was in the corner with his arms wrapped around himself, looking at the buckets of cat litter and the utility dolly where he froze, and looked as though he was lost in a world of his own. He managed to wrap himself in a blanket, and the chills from the cold sweats had seemed to slow. Then, as they watched, they slowly stopped. Can we approach? Chris's voice was deeper than usual. He nodded his head ever so slightly. I wish you would, Daddy. But I don't want Storm to see me like this. It ain't DTs or withdrawal from the shit they filled me with. I don't know. I got hit with a panic attack and the cold sweats. I got that under control with the blanket like you taught me to. He pointed to the one laying folded on the shelf, and all of a sudden I was back, and there was Jason. He shuddered. Dad, it's going to be okay. I kind of know, and I've been there. Not what you've been through, not that bad, so don't worry about that too much. But having nightmares during the daytime because I got slammed or beat by Kathy or one of her tricks. He held his right arm where he had scars that resembled the fresh cuts on RCC's own arm. Or Reed. You want to fold it the world in on yourself and say fuck the world and just bury your head and hide until it all goes away. But my dad is better than any of them asses that did this. Look at all the stuff you accomplished in your life, and I want to be like you. I want a career like you. I want college. You're my hero and my mentor. You're my dad. Graham looked at him with tears in his eyes. He reached out to take Storm's arm. Did he do this to you? No, Kathy, and he turned his hand over to show the scar on the back of it. She put a fork and a pencil through my hand as well when she was stoned and losing it. Chris stepped forward to glance at the injuries. He looked at Graham. Body temp and cold sweats. Do we have something to worry about? That I'm okay on. Just trembling really bad right now. Storm, how can I be a hero, a mentor, when I'm scared shitless right now and don't understand or know why or even remember? When I just have a has-been picture in my mind of an evil smile on a teenage face and a flash of fire. I'm sorry, but this shit ain't good. Dad, you're the hero that stood up to what a bus stop full of assholes were pulling to protect Miss Destiny. You went up against his worst nightmare to protect Aunt Chrissy when she was expecting and helped her to fall in love with the right man who loves and respects not only her, but the children she had with an asshole, and he claims them. Who nailed that bitch that tried to hurt your Destiny and her jet. Stood his ground to fight along with Miss Lily, Miss Destiny, Mr. Hef, and Miss Pam, and who is standing here before a crippled kid who's going to do his damnedest to raise me to be like him, a caring, loving man that my family loves and would do anything to keep him safe. I want to be just like that man and my grandpa who raised that man. And, as you all say, the old man and Pops Calhoun. Graham released his son's arm and opened his trembling ones. Storm walked into them to be pulled against his father's chest in a strong hug. He looked over Storm's head at his own father. Dad, I don't know if it's from the bullying he put me through that you found out about and went to Mr. Hill's and, hate to say it, it didn't get quite handled. It never stopped. It actually got encouraged even more by his father and his uncle. Or if it's from the things Jason would say to me after I was raped, from him calling me the Frankenstein monster after I was stabbed, and he saw the photos at the... Graham paused and shook his head. When that asshole reporter slipped into Dr. Wolf's office and stole the file and leaked my recovery photos. What? Storm stepped back. That's HIPAA law violation shit. We think that was probably a George-related issue, only he never got the photos. They were released on the Black website, Chris explained. Dad, do you remember the night at the health center when Izzy and Flea first opened their grand opening that night? And Izzy and the Iz-Man wound up decking him and Flea banned the three of them from the facility? Well, I'm not sure if that's that or if what just happened is reality and I'm remembering correctly. He dropped his head. Chris stepped closer to him to rest his hand on his shoulder. Tell me, do you think it's a flashback and possibly a memory or something you can't pinpoint because it's there and gone, fleeting? I can't help or do anything if I don't know what my son has had just happened. I understand the flashbacks. I get them, and so does Uncle Silver from El Salvador. Hud and Pat had bombing run shit that comes up with Hap almost being shot down. You know Mac gets hammered with things of the coal and the loss of Uncle Gabe. John, of all things, he can't get to Slothy and those two little girls. Even the bookends, the bombing at the disco in Berlin in the mid-'80s. And Hap deals with the memory of finding that young lady that was killed by the Kensington Strangler serial killer. And for just a moment, he swore it was their Taz until she called him to tell him she was running late to meet him for their lunch date. Yeah, I know, Dad, and that's why Taz was pulled out of special classes she was taking at Frankfurt Hospital and transferred to Temple University Medical Center's teaching facility. And her apartment on Frankfurt Avenue was shut, and she came home to them. You are exactly right on that one. Bet, your Aunt Bet, says about once a week he bolts upright and still screams out her name, and that was 3 years ago. You're there and then it's gone, but you recognize where you were in that instance. Memories are more difficult because they're hidden in the subconscious of your mind, Chris explained. Graham heaved a heavy breath. Dad, thank you. He just talked me back. But do you remember the marks I had on my body when Jim and Dakota found me? The blisters? Chris blew out a breath and closed his eyes. There were too many to count. Your back, chest, buttocks, your legs and thighs. Christ, the soles of your feet were ground beef, like had they been shredded by glass. I could barely recognize your face in the emergency cubicle. That's why I wouldn't let your moms in there. Neither one of them. Those bastards tore my 17-year-old son apart. Some fucking birthday party they threw you. He breathed hard as he growled. Tears filled his eyes. What was that bastard up to? Jason, he was one of them, wasn't he? Graham's eyes went into a series of rapid blinks. Remember below my waist? Remember the burns? Doc Azart thought they may have been from battery acids. The ones on my inner thigh and my groin area. That was Jason. When Hill's Plumbing would be working here, or Mom had to have them at the house, and Jason was there, and he'd light a cigarette. Do you remember his bullshit comment? That was, until Mom threw his ass outside in the cold one winter because she didn't want the smell of cigarette smoke in her house. Chris was quiet as he thought. Fuck, he whispered. Yeah, I do. Flick of the Bic. And he'd hold it in front of you to light the cigarette. And what caused me to freeze frame was I saw him with that lighter as they held me down. Graham scrubbed the back of his neck. He shuddered and backstepped into the shadows. I'd woken up while Reed forced my mouth open and poured a concoction of some shit down my throat. I started to choke and gag. He just kept pouring. Things, then they blur out. I feel several pricks. And then he smashed a bottle into my face and shattered it. That was most of the cuts and gashes. Graham swallowed and choked hard. That was just before he started to pound my face in. Then there's a female who's screaming, and it goes on and on and on. And now it's just gone. The 4 busted your front teeth. The jaw being fractured and dislocated, which caused the TMJ, and you had to have the surgery for, and the implant dentistry. Your jaw being wired for 6 weeks, and then when you were stabbed, to ventilate you, they had to dismantle the wires and tore your mouth and refractured your jaw. Then they damaged the damn front teeth again. Oh my God, Dad. Storm squeezed him tighter. Oh God, Dad, I don't want to remember that, but damn it, it's in my face. He held his hand before him. What I'm remembering, the way they used it. Kathy stopped them. I think I remember that. I remember I woke with my own blood all over me. She was dragging me from her mother's junker. She was saying something about it's our turn. They dragged me under the footbridge. There was a old ratty blanket some homeless guy left there. And there were others of her girlfriends, 2 or 3, he trembled, several more. I see female faces with sneers and ugly looks and words. And the words were the worst. Dad, there may be other kids out there that I don't know about. Oh shit, he clamped his hand over his face. Fuck, I was freezing and just wanted to get warm. I clutched Theo's jacket and wouldn't let it go. The only thing I had was Papu's jacket. I tried to get away. I heard Rainey crying. I think one of the women did too. The blonde asked. She wanted to know if there was a baby in a close-by house or a toddler. Only the closest house out there was Grand Shelley's brother's place, then Jess's, and Mickey wasn't born yet. He and Zoe had just moved in there, and I was found under the covered walking bridge at Dan's where they were working on it. It's gone. He dropped his hand. She wasn't the only female under that bridge. I mean, Kathy. But I can't remember who else was there. Dakota has the notebook with the names, but not every one of them that were there were in that photo. There were others. Chris clenched his fist. You stay here with your son. If Jason is with Dougie and Spencer, they're getting a surprise. All 3 of them. Chris turned to walk out as he grumbled something. Dad, and we're going to find out whose those bitches were. Dad, please. No, I'm getting answers now. I love you, and this is going to be handled. Handled my way. He left the room to close the door behind him. Dad, let's get you to sit down, Storm stated. You're shaking really bad, and if you fall, I won't be able to keep you from getting hurt with all this stuff in here, and with my balance, it isn't good with the walker. Graham gave a nod, and they eased him to the floor to start a series of slow, calm, and meditative breaths. Chapter 72. It was almost an hour that had passed when there was a knock on the door. "Boys, it's Silver. Okay to open the door?" "Dad?" Storm looked at Graham. "Yeah, it's okay. I'm calm. PTSD is easing. I'm good. The panic attack is almost gone." "Come in, Dad, Silver." Silver opened the door to enter. "How about calling me D2? We have all the cats in Mom's office. Chickens are crated, as are the roosters, and the ewes and buck are in the truck cap. I called a different plumbing company. As a matter of fact, you know them quite well, Graham. And we should have done this several years ago, like you did when you took over the house your mother and father owned. That was when they opened their offices in Washington's Crossing, and you hired them for your place. Cranberry Plumbers. I'm staying with Emily's bug to wait until Geordie, Robert, Chandra, and Luke get here. I'm loading the kiddies into Bessie, and as you have 3 dogs and the 2 mops on top of that, and now a barnyard full, and Izzy and Flea have a cat, what's 8 more? He smiled. Besides, Patty is really good with them. Graham actually threw his head back and laughed. Iz will get even with me, you know that, don't you, Uncle Silver? What's the worst she'll do? Nail you with a couple of snowballs with the kids, or splatter you with a water balloon at her summer picnics? Snowball down the neck of my jacket ain't fun. Neither is getting straw out of my hair with these waves and curls after a hay wagon straw fight in October. And he's the one that always starts it. That is true, and he's sneaky. Takes after my M for that. Still think there may be some blood of some kind in all that Irish coffee of hers, somehow. Now, I think I might need you 2 gentlemen to help clean and bandage Chris's hands. He stepped in to take the couriers. What? Graham pushed himself up off the floor to get his balance, then helped Storm up. He didn't put another hole in the outside wall, did he? Grab them couriers and he can explain his badass self to you and why he damn near took his running back's head off his shoulders. As for now, Tootie, RCC, and Buddy are taking care of his hands. Hold it. I'll load the dolly. Graham set the litter buckets on the utility cart with the carrier and Pams. I'll come back for the cat and dog food. They did pack the chicken feed and goat alfalfa, right? In the truck and strapped to the roof rack over the double cab. Silver answered. They left the storage room and walked down the hall where Graham left the dolly outside of the kitchen's swinging doors. As they entered, Chris sat on the kitchen stool at the raised island. His head was down as he flexed his fingers, and there were speckles of blood on his chef's apron and the flour that wasn't from the turkey he put in the oven that morning. Tootie was trying to stem the bleeding from the previously bandaged hand as she cut away the wrappings. RCC was following what Tootie was doing and progressing better, and Buddy stood by the first aid kit. Grandpa, I can't get this stopped. Tootie was almost in panic mode. Dad? Graham stood in front of him. Tootie, sweetie, let me and Uncle Silver see what the hell he did. Old man, he took his hand. Excuse me, RCC. I got this to stop the utter She dabbed and then laid things from the kit out on the island. What did you do? How did they hurt you? Huh? Silver, what the hell's he talking about? Chris looked up. then laughed as he looked around and came back to his son. They didn't touch me, didn't lay a finger on me. Knuckles are split from my wedding band, graduation, and pinky and military rings. Most of the splatter is theirs. Dougie has always been a pussy, where Spencer was a bully, and both of them complete asses. Some of it is from the wall this morning. It's okay, Tootie, sweetheart. RCC, you did a great job. You two and Buddy go help with the cats. You're coming with us. I take Barely? RCC asked. Of course. Wouldn't dream of leaving him here. It's too cold and he'll need to cuddle with you. Smiling, RCC kissed his cheek and skipped off. Thank you. Come on, Buddy. Tootie gave a nod and they left the kitchen. Oh, why'd you almost clobber Uncle Silver? Graham asked as he managed to get the bleeding to slow and finally stop from Chris's knuckles. Didn't realize it was him. He shook his head. And I thought it was Jack Boyle. They partnered together when they were teens. He works with those asses now. He was with them, but he was smart. He stayed out of it. Chris flexed his left hand. Damn, that's going to be stiff. My throwing arm, nevertheless. Silver grabbed Chris by the arm. Get your ass up. You wash those knuckles and get their funk off of you while I fight with the putty tats. Graham, get ice out of the freezer and make up a couple of bags. He took Chris to the sink and turned on the spigot to put the man's hands under, then turned to Graham and Storm. Man will do just about anything so he doesn't have to corral and wrangle and put a kitty cat in a transport. Ha ha ha, Chris grumbled. This shitting water stings. Dad? Chris waved a wet hand. I'm all right. Feels good. Like old times, right, bro? Silver folded his arms over his chest to turn to look at the two as Graham put ice in a bag and set them on the island, and Storm passed him towels from the drawer. I'll play the storyteller while you get some disinfectant on those cuts. But don't use sanitizer. You'll go through the fucking freaking roof. That shit will eat you alive. I made that mistake myself. Silver leaned against the sink counter. Chris grimaced as he poured the disinfecting dish liquid over his knuckles and scrubbed. Tell it true, brother. Don't hold nothing back. Damn sight I will over those assholes. I walked in here just as your father confronted the four of those idiots, and I knew to stand down, but my instincts kicked in just a second or two too soon. I misjudged. It's been a while since I had to back my quarterback in a brawl. I'll have to admit that. I was too quick on the draw and forgot how fast his cannon could be cocked and the Hail Mary explode with his reactions out of the shotgun. That got Chris talking. Jason denied ever being there until I told him I knew what he did with the lighter. Dougie came up with the shit spiel. He was with me at the Havana. I told him he was full of shit. We had photos of those that were there that night, and he was right next to Reed in that picture, and he was lying through his teeth because I was at the Havana. Uncle Silver was in John and Pete's, and everyone else branched out throughout New Hope and Lambertville for, what was it, Silver, 4 fucking days? And Becky was freaking trying to figure out where you could have gotten to when she took her dad, Sexton Ellsworth, to the area she remembered being dumped at by of all people, Jason. They trekked that area for 12 hours with that damn blizzard coming down on her after she spent time in the hospital herself. Only we now know she was dropped off miles away from Filster's farm. And the reason she was disoriented about it was he dropped not only one but several frigging X-pills in her drink with a large dose of phenobarbital. We were all barflies from the time they opened to closing, trying to figure out where the hell our son got to. Dakota put out an APB and a runaway notice, along with an Amber Alert, before Amber Alerts were even really a thing, and went above Noel's authority and issued a missing persons report when you didn't come home by 10 the first night. By 5 the next morning, we had freaking snow everywhere. Becky had made it to River Road from 611 and had to hitchhike home in the start of the second part of the freaking nor'easter. That's when she was told by Sext that you were missing, and he and Dandy realized she wasn't acting right and took her to the hospital. When she was released and he had her lab report, instead of her going home, she took him to the spot she remembered, and he called us. There was no way you could have rode the rig of yours to Washington's Crossing in the snow we had. We'd had 4 to 6 inches when school closed early that Friday. Yardley was even further than that, and the 202 and Peddler's Village, or Bucks County Vineyard, where she thought she was dumped between, would have been too dangerous in ice and snow. 611 was where she was dumped at. That was way the hell out there. But the truckers who dropped her off at her home confirmed that he picked Becky up at 6:11 and 32. You weren't that crazy. We'd hit those places anyway. When George came in and bitched to Ranella at the store that you cut class and he wasted time looking for you. He went to pick you up after he'd been instructed not to because Peggy was starting to ask questions of the school administration and it wasn't making sense with the answers she was getting. Chris reached for a towel to dry his hands, then put them back under the spigot as they started to bleed again. So they were willing to start an inquiry into it, and she was at school that day and saw George's reaction when he couldn't find you after he blundered and said he called the high school. And he did not like it one friggin' bit when he was told you hadn't been in school that day. But the question came up as to why he called the school when she was to get you. That had been arranged when it started to snow. And I knew you rode your rig from home that morning. I'd help you air up the tires. That was Friday, and I'd thrown Reed's ass out of here the Monday morning before, along with the guests he'd been dealing his shit to. That's when he'd said to me, "I'll damn sight get even. I will own this place one day." "I'm pretty damn sure, son." Chris inhaled slowly and blew out his breath. "Now that my son paid the fucking price." Chris turned for Silver to wrap his hands in another towel. We knew rumor had it that some of the places may not card, the bars, the restaurants that serve drink. We hit those places solid. None of us went to work. And this bastard is telling me his kid was with him at the bar, that my ass warmed a stool for 3.5 days until Jim got that dispatch. And he couldn't even touch his baby brother because he was so scared and freaked out and fucking high on some shit they forced into his veins and down his throat. And he had to call the new veterinarian who was renting a room at the inn with his little son and just opened the clinic and was unknown to any of us. Thank gods for Ranella, Yaya, and Papu, with them finding him from meeting Rain at the Chamber of Commerce in the community business meeting. But gratefully, he would become a family member in more ways than one in our Rain Thompson. He had to use a tranquilizer gun on my baby so the EMTs could get you on a gurney and into the emergency room before you fucking froze to death on us. And the dosage he had to use scared him to death that he'd kill you with it. Silver brought Chris to the island to remove the towels and put the ice bags on his hands. He returned to the sink to turn the water off. Dougie set your dad off by saying he was mistaken, like he was at the championship game with your mother, that Ethel made moves on him and he was overreacting as he did back then. Ethel, my cheerleader made moves on that stank ass? The fire lit Chris's eyes as he looked at Silver. That's a death sentence, like any of our ladies would look at anyone other than us in their front line. I know, he's full of shit. Then Spencer opened his yap to say your father didn't know what he was talking about, and then was stupid enough to make the statement that you could be lying to cover the fact that you were on a binger that weekend because it was your birthday. Then Dillwee Jason put a cigarette to his mouth and stroked his friggin' lighter. This is a smoke-free building and they know the law, Graham growled. Silver nodded, as did Chris in confirmation. There's your son, Chris. More worried about this building of an old gal than himself. Well, when Dad saw that lighter, it was like, I think El Salvador hit him all over again from being wounded there. Fuck. Dad, I'm sorry. I know you deal with PTSD from that. Chris smiled. No. There, Silver, you're wrong, my brother. This has been a long time coming between me and Dougie and Spencer. I flipped back to that very high school championship on the sideline when he was a cheerleader and Spencer was the mascot, and I couldn't get off the field fast enough to kill the two of their asses. They were booted off the squad the next day, and Coach Blair took it to Spencer and almost wiped the ground with him in that costume over the shit they pulled. His ass wasn't that great as our lion anyway. Silver shook his head. Chris chuckled. Only reason he was picked was because his father was part of the PTA. Same ass as always. Theo had issues with him when they were in school. Silver patted Chris's hands dry. Chris looked at Graham and Storm. He was done as mascot, and they were both expelled by Mr. Balashi when the ladies and coach informed him about it, and war was declared. That's when they asked Jolas Gould, Damian Sacrolarisis, and Ruben Kuga to try out for the cheerleading team, and Gabe Applegate became the Lion. The guys were all on the gymnastics squad with Lottie, and they were overjoyed to do it because they knew the ladies trusted them. And if anything was pulled on them, the front line of the football team would kick whose ever ass it was that pulled it. As I was dealing with Doogie with a war of words, Uncle Silver walked in. Spencer, I knew I needed to keep an eye on, as he was coming to the side. Silver made a grab for Jason as he tried to take off. I thought it was Boyle, and I'd lost sight of him and thought he was going to jump me. He was here, but took off when I started in on them. I didn't realize it was Silver. Silver smiled. Still got them football moves. Fast on my feet, unless Emily's chasing me. He winked. Then I gotta let her catch me, unless she's got the broom in her hand. I got the hell out of the way and kept my head from your dad's strike. Sorry about that, brother. It's all right. I seen what was up and what happened. Chris smiled. I dropped Spencer with a shot to the jaw and caught Doogie in the chin at an angle of a left cross and spun him into the pantry door face first as I ducked and threw out a right roundhouse and almost caught Silver. He got his head out of the way and turned on those still fast feet of his, and I pulled the punch as best I could. Still caught him in the left shoulder, but at least it was a glancing shot, not full-on force to his chops. I haven't kept my head this long. I knew when to get my ass out of the way. He still got a hell of a punch when he needs to throw one, Silver smiled. Good thing, too. Then Silver shoved Jason to me, and that's when I jacked Jason against the fridge, and he admitted he was there and blurted out that he helped to get you there for Reed and on his orders. And he dumped Becky on 611 when she passed out, and he thought he'd given her too much X in her soda. Then I demanded to know what he meant what he meant when his ass squeaked like a mouse and stated that it was he and Reggie that picked you up that morning and conned you into going with them. Graham blinked several times. I have a blip on my radar. The black truck. Snow. Shit. It's gone. Take a deep breath. Chris reached out to place his hand on his son's shoulder. Jason admitted that he and Reggie conned you. They conned me, yeah. They got me to skip school as a belated birthday present to myself, and they had a party planned for me. They loaded my rig into the back of my pickup and took me to Filcher's, in the back of their pickup, and took me to Filcher's farm. Graham closed his eyes and started to shudder. Slow down. What Jason said happened next was that before they did, they drove you around a while so they could get you to relax. They had put something Reed gave them in a bottle they handed you when you started to get groggy. Reed injected you with some other shit. They had to keep you out of it until he got there with his crew. Reed got there and they took off to school. So there's things to your jigsaw puzzle that aren't just misplaced. There seems to be at least several hours when you were solely with Reed and whoever he had with him. Graham staggered back against the counter. What's the time period that I'm missing? That would be from about 7 o'clock in the morning on Friday because they went to school for the day. and it wasn't released until 1 in the afternoon when it was called due to snow and the storm coming in. Then, after school, Jason, picked up Becky, telling her they were having a party for you. By that time, you were so out of it, you didn't know which side was up. Chris slid a paper across the island. "What's this?" Graham stepped forward to look. "I'm turning it over to Dakota when he gets here. It won't stand up in court because it will be deemed as coerced confession. But the statute of limitations are 11 to 20 years on felony cases and haven't passed as it's only been 16 years. That's what Dakota explained when I called him. With the DNA, it leaves it open for extended years, plus the seriousness of the crime. Becky also gave him a list a while ago of who she remembered being there, but we now know who the rest of the bastards were that were present, along with several of the bitches' names that stayed on to, as he put it, dump you as they were told to do by Reed, and Dakota, Richie, and Jimbo are going after them." He started to hyperventilate. "Dad, I slow down, you're panicking, and going to put yourself into a seizure or a convulsion with the cold sweat you had earlier. You're stuttering. You don't have to look. Dakota, Jim, and Rich will be here soon. Slow breaths, in, out, in, out." Graham followed his father's directions, and he slowed his breathing and was able to gain control of himself. There was the sound of a truck. Storm looked out the window. "Plumbers, and it's cranberry on the truck." "Good. Let's get the critters and our women out of here. Silver, unless we want to freeze while we're trying to do this Thanksgiving dinner, you take one turkey, I'll take the other, or they'll be for shit. They need to be basted and finished cooking. Give it 2 more hours to be sure with transport and cool down. Grab several desserts. I'm sure Iz and Flea have got veggies. Hopefully the cranberries can get us back up and running before we have to cancel, or those folks that have made reservations today, and we can have Annie's baby shower here on Monday night. And when the turkeys are done, we'll slice them down, put several into pans, and do a run to the other homes. There ain't no way we're all gonna meet here tonight, not with this friggin' place being an icebox. And you two," he pointed to Graham and Storm, "have a shopping spree to go on. Thanksgiving isn't going to happen this year as we know it. The ladies have already made the phone calls to everyone. It's going to be half-assed with us all being all over the damn place, and only a few had parts of the main course. We'll be shuffling these birds to them, and no sides or desserts, so they'll be scrambling to make that stuff up. Others have sides and no mains. They're throwing things together. The only one that actually has a full menu is Sonny and Mac, and that's because, of course, Jess can't cook worth a shit if his life depends on it, and they had planned for the Billocks' first Thanksgiving here in America, and with the shit that went down with Creed, Dan's going to be struggling. As for us, I didn't even get a chance to get the biscuits together. This is the first time in all these freaking years that this has happened. I'm just thankful, Grandpa, to have my dad in this family, Storm smiled. Me too. Graham hugged him and blew out a breath. Well said, both of you. Chris gritted his teeth as Silver bandaged his hand. Chapter 73. Chris and Ethel had settled in their former home with Storm's dogs and the two furry mops on Thanksgiving afternoon. Their two pups, Baka and Haja, were snuggled on the floor side by side with the other three of Storm's. Chickens and roosters were secured in the old hen house, and ewes and bucks were in their goat barn, warm and settled, with fresh straw and hay, and the propane was delivered with an emergency call to Jolas Gould and his wife. The elder Calhouns had moved into Christina's old bedroom, which they turned into a guest room when she moved into her first apartment, then purchased her home in Washington's Crossing. Tootie had the attic bedroom that was once the playroom for their kids, now all adults. Storm moved into Graham's teenage bedroom. RCC and Barely had Jim's old bedroom. Buddy had taken the second alcove room in the attic with the skylight so he could watch the stars at night, as he was fascinated by astrology and astronomy. What was left after his grandma and grandpa had gone through his clothes, Storm wasn't sure of, but there wasn't much. He had 4 pairs of jeans, 2 pajama bottoms, 5 rock concert, and 2 band t-shirts, and his 3 button-downs that had survived the onslaught along with his turtleneck. His grandma was soaking that to try to lighten it in oxygenated bucket of hot water after she called Miss Ruby, the inn's laundress, to discuss how to get the white back to being white from the faded gray it had become, and letting Ruby know that she would be paid for the time that the inn was closed for. The only other thing to survive was 2 V-neck sweaters that she'd okayed to stay. His grandpa, however, was still grumbling about the cowboy hoodie sweatshirt he'd brought at the thrift store. This had been the first funny argument he had heard ensue between his dad and Grandpa, consisting of, "That thing goes," Chris had shouted. "Dad, it kept his butt warm," Graham retorted with a smile. "I'll buy him an Eagles hoodie. That's a trader's colors and a damn turncoat sweat. Send it to Mark Holmes if he doesn't want it burned at the stake. I promise we'll get him an Eagles one before the next game." Ethel tried to intervene. "Dallas still sucks." Chris folded his arms over his chest. "That's Dallas still stinks, Dad," Graham retorted. "Not in my book. It sucks." "Sweetheart, we'll all chip in and get him Eagles gear. A hoodie, sweatshirt, several jerseys like our other grandbabies, and t-shirts. Geez, you're worse than Billy 500 or Joey Shake 72 on YouTube. You could battle with Sills over against Mark Holmes on his Wednesday shows. Billy at least says stinks. You use the word sucks. The man has got it right, and you, my lioness, know I follow him and subscribe, and am a member of the Dingbat Nation, and proud of it. And yeah, I'm part of the Cowboys Nation, just to rip into Mark when I get a chance. So is the old man and Pops. As for Philly 500, he may be a young'un and not hit his middle age yet, but he knows his stuff. And Mark is as old as I am, for Christ's sake. And he hates Dallas as much as the old man and Pops. And yet, Dallas is loved by Mark. Mark is as bad as friggin' Momo when it comes to what once was the Redskins. We hate Dallas, as does the old man and Pops, all the way back to when Jaws was our quarterback. And Pops remembers the hit concrete Chuck Benetic put on Frank Gibbert and put him in the hospital. We lost one hell of a man when he was called home in 2015. And when Gabriel played for the Rams, when they were in L.A. from 62 to 72, and our Eagles until he retired in 77. He and Bill Berge are both gone now. They have a history in this family, and no grandson of mine, Chris thumped his chest, is wearing a damn Cowboy sweatshirt. Fuck them, and they're America's team. Even though my old man grew up in New England, he's been an Eagles fan since he was a child. When Pop started walking, he was Eagles in the 30s, and he remembers when Pittsburgh and Philly joined teams during World War II and were the Steagles. He claims his first word was Eagles, and the old man agrees to that. He heard my great-grandfather tell the story about Pops walking over to the radio when New England was playing against the Birds, and he pointed and said, Eagles. They'd crucified me if one of them ever found out there was a Cowboys anything, any type of item in their house. That was the end of it. His grandpa had handed his dad $500 to be strictly used for Eagles replacement items, and took the Cowboys hoodie and placed it in the fireplace and burned it while flapping his arms like a big bird and doing the Lions' victory dance like he was in the end zone and scored a game-winning touchdown. Then he proceeded to teach the dance to RCC, who danced it with Beerley and him. Ethel shook her head at the socks, then looked at him as she tossed her grandson's wear in the dustbin. Where are your underpants? He shrugged. My hips, Grandma. They don't fit right. She turned back at Graham as he was watching his father's antics with RCC and Beerley, and Grandma had tossed some other items into the bin with the rest of the ratty stuff. Graham, you talk to the men. See what they recommend because of the fitting. This isn't healthy if he's playing any type of sports with the dyes in the clothes and that they're using nowadays. Yes, Mom. Graham agreed as he shook his head and stifled a laugh at his father and the young teenage girl. When they went into the foyer, Ethel hung his army jacket with his worn denim and in the cloak closet, and produced a leather flight jacket with a wool lining. This was Grandpa's as a teen. He can't fit into it anymore. His shoulders are too broad for it now, but it will keep you warm until you find something you like. Sorry, it's been a hell of a Thanksgiving for you. She hugged him. Usually we all just gather at the end. Grandpa does the turkeys. there's ham and a roast with everything that we all bring. And then there's a family football game. It's touch, but the old Lions take up their position against the younger guys who are on the defense, led by Izzy. And they play an offensive-defensive game with the family playing both team sides. Offense stays offense for both teams, and defense stays defense on both sides. Chrissy gets us Lionesses out there with our cheers, and we get the girls going. Then we watch the televised game and take in trains, planes, and automobiles. And the kids get the movie Grumpy Cat's Worst Christmas Ever. That kitty was adorable. Ethel placed a hand on his cheek. This is not the way we wanted your first Thanksgiving home to be. It's okay, Grandma. He stepped into her arms to lay his head on her shoulder. Thank you for everything you all have done for me and my dogs. It's been a better one than any I have ever spent with Kathy, even the ones she had with Will, even though Will gave it his best shot. There was always someone at the door that she had to spend time with. He dropped his voice and whispered, in the bedroom. Even with Will, she was tricking. He breathed out hard. And yet, I'm looking at Grandpa over there with RCC, and I am getting the biggest kick out of the hate he has over the Dallas Cowboys. You want to know a secret? Ethel laughed. What's that, Grandma? On Thanksgiving Day, we don't watch Philly 500. That TV goes on Thanksgiving morning, stationed to the YouTube channel with Mark Holmes. And it plays all day with your grandfather bitching at Mark, even though it's through the TV station. He carries his phone with him so he can get into the chat. And he continues to hassle Mark. But I'll tell you this, they really are good. They keep it straight, and if somebody pulls any type of crap that any of them don't like, he's one of Mark's moderators. He's got a wrench. Storm stood there and chuckled. Only Grandpa. Yeah, only Grandpa. Can I tell you something else, Grandma? Sure, what's that? There was always some type of hassle going on at those apartments wherever we were living at. One year in Newark, we had a shootout in the parking lot, and the bullets came through the window. He stepped back to kiss her cheek and slid into the warmth of the jacket to zip it. What's the turkey dinner when I and my dogs have the best family a guy could have and a place to really call home for once in my life where I'm actually wanted and loved? She wiped her own tears. If we had known you were dads, even with him being a teen, you would have been raised by him and by us with vanilla. As God, Diana, and Lucifer are my witnesses, we did try. But even if I would have had to kidnap you myself, this shit wouldn't have happened to you. If we could have done anything about it, and believe me, we all tried, but we kept running into a brick wall with New Jersey's Child Services and her caseworkers, and then the one that was assigned to you when you were transferred to him. I'm so sorry, Storm. Grandma, I'm home. And if you would have, I wouldn't have had my 3 rowdy guys. It's okay. I'm here to stay, and so are my dogs. It was decided they'd take Destiny for dinner as a thank you, And for Thanksgiving, as she worked on that day, Graham and Storm left shortly after 3 p.m. to meet her. And there we have the end for this day in this chapter. I hope you enjoyed this. We're still wondering where Reed is lurking. We found out the craziness that could be the Mandula family when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, especially as Izzy played backup center. We also found out more of the story behind Graham's disappearance for 4 days in those 16 years earlier. So, I hope you enjoyed this. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you want to subscribe and hear more, please do. And by the way, please visit the channels I've mentioned of Philly 500, who is an Eagles podcaster, and visit Mark Holmes, who is Cowboys. And that is located at Jobu Sports, or both on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you find them and enjoy their podcast as well. We will see you next time. Blessings and have a good day.